Kamala Harris is the Democratic nominee for President of the United States. There is a lot of controversy surrounding her in terms of whether she is black enough because her mom is from India, her dad is Jamaican. To me, she is black because based on today's standard, if you have a ounce of black, then you are black. So she is black, but she makes a lot of reference to her Indian side, as you will see in this example. And I will tell you what her dad would have said in this case. Let's listen.
Everything is in context. My mother she would give us a hard time sometimes, and she would say to us, I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
So here she's basically saying that you are a reflection of your history and you should always remember where you're coming from. I'm gonna tell you what her dad would say. So her dad wrote this book, Reflections of a Jamaican Father by Donald Harris, Professor Donald Harris. This is what he would have said. Remember where you come from, which basically means the same thing. But she didn't use this one because I guess she more leans to the Indian side. But again, people, she is black. She is a black woman. Anyway, I'm gonna go to Kim Iverson's YouTube channel because she interviewed Caleb Mappin, who is a journalist, an author, and a political analyst. He wrote a book that was on Amazon for the last 4 years, which they took down because of something they claim is wrong with the cover all of a sudden, ever since Kamala was nominated to be the president of the United States. She's gonna be running against Donald Trump. So let's listen to what Caleb Mappin have to say. He did a lot of research on Kamala Harris. Let's listen. Another thing, her dad would also probably have used this. This is the national fruit of Jamaica. It's called ackee. So instead of coconut tree, maybe her dad would have said the ackee tree. So this is the ackee. It also makes our national dish, which is ackee and saltfish or salt cod. So this is the ackee when it's ready to be picked and cooked. Anyway, we're going over to Kim now. So now we are at Kim's YouTube channel and we're gonna hear what Caleb have to say about Kamala Harris. Let's listen.
About people made fun of her for her laugh or whatever. She sees herself as a victim. And in her narrative, it's very clear her mother is a saint. Her mother can do no wrong. Her mother is all things good. And her father, she does not want to talk about. Donald Harris, who is still living, unlike her mother, who lives in Jamaica, who has denounced her presidential campaign and denounced her during the 2020 election after she invoked her Jamaican heritage. She doesn't want to talk about her father at all. And the two of them are not on good speaking terms. And that is very, very clear. And what's weird is if you look into the details, there was an ugly divorce. In Kamala Harris's autobiography, she says that the only thing her parents fought over when they divorced was the books. Well, that sounds nice. They only fought over the books. Well, Donald Harris, in his Reflections of a Jamaican Father, tells a very different story. And he says they didn't just fight over the books, they fought over Kamala and her sister. There was a custody battle. And in that custody battle, they played up the stereotype of Jamaican men and black men in general as being, pot smoking, lazy joy seekers. And that's why when Kamala Harris said, when she was on the Breakfast Club, a radio show, they asked her if she'd ever smoked weed. And she said, half my family's from Jamaica. What do you think? That really rubbed Donald Harris the wrong way, because that stereotype was used to prevent him from being able to raise his daughter. He's a PhD. He's a well-respected academic economist who taught at Stanford. But the courts, in his view, saw him as a black man from the Caribbean, as potentially not a good father, and he was not able to raise his daughters because of that stereotype. And so he heard those words, and he immediately went to the media, and he said that his entire Jamaican family wants to distance themselves from what he called a travesty of identity politics. Those are intense words. I mean, if you don't think Kamala has some intense baggage, you're wrong. But the other thing that's important to keep in mind, and this is why.
So I'm going to go to Professor Donald Harris's Reflections of a Jamaican Father to see what he said about the divorce. Let's go. So we are here. We're going to look what he said about the divorce. So we are here. This is what he's basically saying, that in the divorce settlement, the state of California is saying that fathers cannot handle taking care of their children, and especially in his case, a Negro from the island was the Yankee stereotype who might just end up eating his children for breakfast. So this is his thoughts on the whole thing with the courts. He definitely thought that they were being unfair to him and his parenting skills. So that's what he thought about the American justice system. And he says, nevertheless, he continued loving his children, and he did not renege his responsibility of being a father. So now we will go back to Kim and Caleb Mappin to hear the rest of what he has to say. Let's go.
That there are people around Kamala Harris who know how to push her buttons. They know what they can say to her, and that Kamala Harris views herself as a victim. We don't know all the details, okay? Donald Harris left us some hints in his essay. It's very carefully written. If you read it, he talks about how sad he is that she never met her grandmother, how her grandmother is kind of who was a member of parliament in Jamaica and was a socialist and a labor representative. And there's some hints there. He doesn't exactly say what the story is. But for some reason, she feels that she is a victim. She feels the world has been unfair to her, and she blames Donald Harris for that.
In terms of Kamala Harris's family affiliation in Jamaica, to me, her family deals with both sides. They deal with the People's National Party. They also deals with the Jamaica Labour Party. Like in the earlier times, Miss Chrissy, which is the grandmother of Professor Donald Harris, she was fascinated by Bustamante, which is the first Prime Minister of Jamaica, and he's JLP. And people are saying that under the People's National Party's government, Donald Harris helped to write certain policies and stuff like that to benefit the people of Jamaica. So I wouldn't say they are affiliated with any particular party in Jamaica, but who knows?
We don't know exactly why, and I speculate. I mean, there's various reasons why. The other thing, and this is a big blank spot in all narratives of Kamala Harris, is that her high school years were spent not in California, but in Quebec. And she never talks about what went on in Quebec. Now, I've heard rumors.
And who don't know Quebec? Quebec is in Canada. That's basically the French part of Canada. A few years ago, they tried to separate, but it failed. The referendum failed, and they are still a part of Canada. So he's saying that's where she went to high school. So you guys can check that out for yourself.
That I'm not going to repeat because I don't know, I have no way of substantiating them. But a lot of people have said that something very awful happened to Kamala Harris when she was a high school student in Quebec. I can't confirm that, but I do know that in all her autobiographies and all of her references to her life, there's this huge blank spot for when she lived in Canada for a few years. And that's, you know, those were pretty important years in her life. She never talks about them. And Kamala Harris views herself as a victim, and she's angry.
And this is also another reason why African Americans are saying that she is not African American enough, because I guess she spent a lot of her years in Canada. I guess her high school years, when your mind is being developed. Maybe when she came back to America, she got into the culture, because I saw her, you know, doing her thing with the dances and stuff like that, in that video floating around on X.
And she wants vengeance, and that's what made it okay in her mind to do the awful things she did as California State Attorney General. That little girl was me. The world was unfair to me, and I can do what I want. I need to show that I'm powerful. I need to show that I mean, it's awful. It's awful. The more you look into it, I do think there's awful.
Yeah, so daddy issues sounds like, you know, I mean, you're pointing this out.
Another thing is, people are saying that she plays up whether she is black or whether she is Indian, because when she was elected senator for California, she was announced as the first Indian senator for California. They didn't talk about her blackness. So I don't know. I don't know what to say, but to me, she is black and she is Jamaican. She was back and forth to Jamaica as a child, so she must have picked up some Jamaican stuff. But anyway, thanks for watching. Please leave your thoughts below. Subscribe, thumbs up. I will catch you in the next one. Always want more, and make sure you are worth more. Watch another video.